the Financial Survival Network, helping you to survive and thrive in the new economy. Get our complimentary newsletter at financialsurvivalnetwork.com. This is the Financial Survival Network.
Financial Survival Network is presented to you by Regal Assets. Buy and sell physical gold and silver through your existing retirement plan, 100% tax-free with Regal Assets. If you want to include physical gold or silver in your existing IRA or old 401k, request your free investment kit, which was recently featured in the Forbes and Smart Money Wall Street Journal magazines. Call toll-free 855-678-6620, 855-678-6620, or visit regalassets.com. You're listening to the Financial Survival Network. I'm Kerry Lutz on 1590 WPSL. You're probably wondering, are the stories about China being in a bubble true? Is their economy going to collapse from too much growth? Well, you need to hear from somebody on the ground, which is why I've got Dan Collins of the ChinaMoneyReport.com on the line with me now. Welcome back, Dan.
Thanks, Gary. It's good to be back.
So what's going on with China? Like, we're hearing a lot of different stories. 60 Minutes had the largest real estate developer in the country saying that she believed that residential real estate was in a bubble. What's the real story?
Yeah, I saw the piece. That was Kathy Zhang, who's a very intelligent lady, a self-made billionaire. I definitely listen to her when she gives her comments. Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a bubble in real estate. Is it as bad as the U.S.? Probably not. The thing people need to keep in mind, and when the mainstream media in the U.S. does a lot of hit pieces on China, which they often do, they don't mention any real statistics. Like, for instance, in China, half of the homes have been paid cash up front. The other half have a 30% down payment. So nobody's sitting on unsold homes. It's actually the opposite is true. There are massive laws and regulations to stop people from buying property with cash. They're trying to drive down prices to control any bubble. Is there is possibly a price bubble? Yes, but probably not a credit bubble. Market's been very flat for 3 years. You literally cannot get a home loan for a second house now. So China's putting in a lot of regulations. Has there been overbuilding? Probably, but then you have to go back 10. I've been here 15 years in China. I remember back in the days in 2001, the average family was living 6 to 7 people in a one-room apartment. And that's not a one-bedroom apartment. That's a one-room apartment. And you would have 7 or 8 apartments sharing one bathroom on the same floor. So from 10 or 12 years ago, absolutely, there's been a lot of real estate building. Prices have skyrocketed. But we have to keep in mind from where the market came from. And it's probably a pricing bubble, but definitely not a credit bubble at this point.
And one thing I've seen on YouTube is watch them build like a 15-story hotel, literally in 30 days. The pace at which they can put up structures in China is nothing short of amazing.
Yeah, and that's what leads to a lot of the ghost city stories. There definitely is some overbuilding in certain areas where the government got overly ambitious and they thought if you build it, they will come, and they didn't come. A city like Ordos is a good example. I don't know if people know of that one. But in general, yeah, what they'll do is the government will plan to build up a new area of the city to relieve population pressure in other areas of the city. They'll go in, and an entire new area of the city is built in 6 months. So anybody just taking pictures there going around is astounded. It looks like a ghost city, but everything's been sold. All the apartments are sold. All the buildings are sold. And if you wait a year, 2 years go by, the natural urbanization that's continuing in China fills up these areas.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing the pace at which it's happening. I mean, you look at what happened in the U.S. and its industrialization, its development, and lifting all these people out of poverty, and you see that was relatively slow motion compared to what's happening now.
Yeah, the industrialization and the building of, China has 70 new international airports under construction right now. They just built the world's largest high-speed train network in 5 years. I mean, the amount of building and the systems here that it's really free market capitalism, and everything gets done so fast. A lot of local government decision making. So they are really, China's in a real renaissance. I mean, you can see it from, I've witnessed it firsthand here 15 years ago, from where people were on bicycles to today. Basically, everywhere I go in China, I can take the high-speed train. So I take a Shanghai to Beijing in 4 hours. It's like going from Washington, D.C., down to maybe around Atlanta, and I do that in probably even below that, even more south of Atlanta. But do that in 4 hours. It's like 1,000 kilometers. So yeah, you're going 200 miles an hour on the high-speed trains, and you can sit there and work on your laptop. So I mean, their infrastructure now is so far ahead of the United States. New roads, new airports, new buildings, new everything.
Mm-hmm. Well, it beats taking an airplane. When you can get that far, that fast, then you think about how long it takes to get to the airport, how long you wait around, if there's delays, and then you hop on the train and you're there. That's pretty remarkable. So
absolutely, yeah. Shanghai to Beijing was a 2-hour flight. It's only a 4-hour train ride. So absolutely, your point is, yeah, the train's much faster.
And more comfortable, too, of course.
Yep.
So what about what's going on with North Korea now? Everyone, you probably have seen the headlines in the U.S. People believe that China and North Korea are all buddy-buddy, and that North Korea is doing China's bidding, basically.
Yeah, North Korea is really the hermit kingdom. I've spent some time on the border there in a city called Dandong in China. In fact, I went with the mayor in a boat. We went right along the shore of North Korea. And I could have literally, if I'd hopped out, it would have been on the beach on North Korea. The Chinese side is fully developed, 50-story buildings, restaurants, shops, nice level standard of living. And on the other side, that have done none of these capitalist reforms that China's been telling them to do for 20 years. It looks like from 100 years ago, people look like ghosts. I saw people standing around. Yeah, I mean, China for 20 years has been pushing North Korea just to follow their own example. But North Korea, I think, is actually more afraid of China than it might be the United States, because they basically have a giant on their doorstep, and how to control that is a tough job for smaller countries like North Korea.
Do you think China would accept North Korea starting a war? Would they be against that?
No, I don't. They absolutely would be against that. In fact, when they just did the latest nuclear test, China openly scolded them in the media and pulled back a lot of assistance. And I think that's why North Korea has stepped up their rhetoric, because they're basically now a giant welfare state, due to hardcore communism. And every time that they need rice imports or cooking oil imports or anything, they need to say they're going to nuke somebody, and then they can get more assistance. But it's really a hermit kingdom. I have some Chinese friends. I know a guy. He went into North Korea with trading rice. I don't know what he gets in exchange for it, but one of his company's trucks ran over a guy, killed him, and the villagers demanded $50 in rice. That was the compensation. I mean, that's how brutal communist regimes are, and it's just a warning to everybody to stay away from socialism.
Well, is China now officially more capitalist than communist? I mean, you hear about the massive corruption in the party. The top 60 party leaders are all billionaires, and it makes one wonder, is it a kleptocracy, or are they going towards a capitalist model where fairness, open markets, free prices, and that type of thing rule the day?
Yeah, China is, in my opinion, much more free market than the United States. They do have these problems. Their three main problems would be corruption, inflation, and environmental collapse, which is happening. It's all around us. They found over 1,000 dead pig carcasses in the Shanghai River the other day.
Yeah.
They're finding it. Yeah, I mean, so those are the three main areas. But when you go down to the grassroots, basically what happened in China is they starved about 50 million people to death here in the 1960s. because the government micromanaged the economy. They told them everything on what they should do. They told the Chinese peasants how to plant rice, although they'd been planting rice here for thousands of years, and led to a crop collapse. And so they killed 50 million people. By the 1980s, they realized they had nothing. They couldn't even clothe their own people or eat anything outside of rice. So they finally opened up the door to free market capitalism, and everything went. I mean, one of the purest examples of free market capitalism. They control their big industries like oil and gas and banking, but outside of that, it's brutal competition in every industry here. And that's happened the last 20, 30 years, and they've boomed. But I think now China's going to put the clamps on it, and government gives themselves more credit than they deserve for the Chinese economic miracle, which was really developed by the people. And now they'll probably come on and put a lot of Western-style measures on China to clamp down the economy, which won't help.
Yeah, well, it's funny that you say that it's more capitalist than the U.S. because I'm trying to set up a new company for a client, and went to a major bank to set up a bank account there. And mind you, he's been a client of the bank for over 30 years, and you can't believe the grilling that they put him through and the documentation, the interview that he had to go through. And this bank knows him for 30-something years. Is this in the name of preventing terrorism or money laundering? It just seems to be insane to me.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, in China, you can open a bank account in 5 minutes. You could open a company in 2 days. You can build a factory in 6 months. I mean, there's regulations, but they're very easy to go through. There's a very standard, transparent system on how to do everything. There's 1% property tax. 90% of the people don't even pay tax. They don't qualify to pay tax. They collect all their taxes via VAT, very simple, open, 17% off the top line. Whereas the U.S., our tax system's 5 times the size of the Bible, and none of the corporations are paying tax. They're all offshore. So absolutely, when you look at it that way, China is much more free market than the United States. And the United States is run by lawyers and the loopholes and the regulations and the high taxes. It just shut down the economy, and that's what we're living through today.
Yeah, no doubt you're right. So if you're an American, you got some money and you want to invest in China, where's the best place to put it? Where would you feel safest investing?
Well, for most Americans, I don't recommend Chinese stocks because unless you really know what you're buying. Obviously, I have a newsletter, China Money Report. We have recommendations on Chinese stocks. But Hong Kong is a good place to benefit from China. Just even in cash, you hear in China you get 5% deposit rate, plus you get the exchange rate. So if you do the numbers, you could make gains here 50% or more in 5 years. When you talk about 4 to 5% currency appreciation plus 5% minimum with no risk deposit. So if you need Chinese permanent residence though to do banking in China. So for most Americans, they probably need to look at Hong Kong. Hong Kong's still a good place to enter through China and to benefit from the growth.
Hey, and speaking of Hong Kong, what's the Chinese government's attitude towards Hong Kong? It's no longer so important to their economic strategy, is it?
No, I mean, Beijing doesn't, it's part of China, but at the same time, they don't trust it with the Western background. They want to develop their own financial centers, Shanghai and Beijing. Shanghai is way behind the 8 ball so far, though, in developing into a financial center because Beijing hasn't released the power. They haven't made the currency convertible yet. The new administration coming into Beijing now looks like these guys are reformers, though. There's a lot of reforms they need to make. They've got to let the renminbi strengthen to knock down inflation. So I think some of the new group coming in seem to be very financial focused and reform minded, so they can put in the policies to help China grow. But Hong Kong is still booming because we're still at the ground phases of the renminbi going global, and I predict will replace the U.S. dollar. China is the world's largest trading nation. They have the world's largest creditor nation. The rest of the world needs Chinese manufacturers, and China needs the commodities. So that's why China's economically displacing the United States and everywhere from Africa to Latin America. You have Chinese companies that are openly talk about the Chinese heavy manufacturing equipment says in 10 years we'll replace Caterpillar all over the world for heavy machinery, and they're on their way. They make the equipment at 20% of the cost that Caterpillar does. So, so there's the Hong Kong is still a good place. They're still booming. They've got a real residential real estate bubble now they're trying to control, but it's a interesting place. Hong Kong's good because their currency peg will eventually break, and the Hong Kong dollar is going to appreciate rapidly. So one very good safe area for Americans is banking deposits in Hong Kong dollars.
And they'll take U.S. deposits in Hong Kong?
Absolutely. Hong Kong is one of the freest markets in the world. But I wouldn't recommend holding U.S. dollars. I would put any money there and then convert it to Hong Kong dollar. Because when the peg breaks, and there's a lot of hedge fund guys that have bets on the Hong Kong dollar now, when that peg breaks, it could go up 20-30% in a few days.
Wow. So interesting times we're living in. So Dan, people want to find out more about you, send you an email. Where would they go?
Yeah, they can go to www.thechinamoneyreport.com.
All right. Well, hey, thanks for being back with us on Financial Survival Network, and we'll talk to you again soon. Be well.
Thank you. Take care.
Fortuna Silver Mines is now a show sponsor. Under President and CEO Jorge Ganoza, it's quickly becoming a world-class silver producer with 2 operating mines and extensive property holdings in silver-rich Peru and Mexico that will help fuel future growth. Started in 2005, it's gone from just 5 employees to over 1,500 today, while keeping its commitment to social and environmentally responsible operations. As of the third quarter of 2012, they've hit 80% of anticipated silver production of 3.7 million ounces and 94% of expected gold production of 17,400 ounces. By mid-2013, the production rate forecast is 5 million ounces of silver and 26,000 ounces of gold. Fortuna is currently seeking accretive M&A opportunities in the Americas. Fortuna is a proven winner with rapidly rising production into the foreseeable future. Their ticker symbol is FSM on the New York Stock Exchange and FVI on the TSX. For more information, click on their logo link on financialsurvivalnetwork.com or go to fortunasilver.com. Join Fortuna Silver Mines' record of outstanding success.